Dead Channel Duo, episode number 69, the solo episode. Man, it feels weird doing an intro by myself, but here we are. Usually the intro is Andy's thing. It's kind of become his trademark, so yeah, it's a solo episode. And I know that's probably a little disappointing to some people, and I totally get that disappointment, and if it's something that you're not into, I totally get it. You know, I would tell you to maybe check out the other 68 episodes, because I think those are pretty good. But this week has been a little bit of an ordeal. I feel like the wheels have kind of fallen off for me when it comes to scheduling and carving out time to do this podcast each week. So let me kind of get you guys caught up as to why Andy's not here this week. And I want to make it really clear from the outset, it's 100% something that I would place the blame on me. I have had a really hard time over the last 3 weeks with my new job, finding and dedicating the time to do this show and do it right. So I know what some people might be thinking, and I don't want to make excuses. I really just want to give you guys the full picture and the full scheme of things. So before we get into the regular show format, and yes, I'm kind of doing this to fill time, but this show takes a lot of effort on both of our parts to get done and out every Sunday. And we've been really consistent. We've never missed a Sunday other than when we took a hiatus, which we will not get into that right now. That's a whole different thing that had nothing to do with scheduling. So my main point is this. It takes a lot of time and effort to get this thing out to you guys every Sunday. That's why I get a little bit frustrated when the numbers are low. Like this month, our numbers have been the worst. Like it's one of the worst months we've ever had on this podcast. It's not even just because it's a short month. It's just people aren't tuning in. So that can be frustrating in and of itself, but the time it takes is considerable. Just to give you a brief rundown, and I know you guys have heard this before. I've talked about it on my channel. I probably even talked about it on here. Generally speaking, I have to watch a movie that's about 2 hours. That's number one. It takes us about an hour and a half to record this thing every week. Even if the actual show is 1 hour on the dot, it usually takes about an hour and a half to get everything done. I'm going to say another 30 minutes for show notes and publishing it and getting all the description in YouTube, the description on the audio only version, making sure it goes out to every single audio platform like it should. That's another 30 minutes right there. And we're already at 4 hours. And then we're not even counting the time it takes me to edit this thing, which we're talking an hour to 2, depending on episode length. So generally speaking, we put about 5.5 hours to 6 hours into this. At least me personally, I'm not sure what Andy clocks. I would assume it's pretty close to the same. So it takes a huge amount of commitment. And to give you even further perspective as far as the commitment that both of us have put into this show, like my channel, if you haven't noticed, is completely dead. No pun intended. I know it's DCD. That was originally kind of started as a joke. It's kind of a joke as far as, oh yeah, both of our channels are dead. Ha ha, funny. But my channel's dead. The time that I would put into my channel has gone into this. And I feel like I'm kind of talking out of both sides of my mouth, because I know on my channel, probably about a year ago, somebody asked me if it came down to it, which would you choose, the podcast or your channel? And I said my channel. But here we are, and I'm doing the opposite. But this week, it's been an ordeal. I have this new job, and I come home at night, and I'm completely exhausted. I've fallen asleep in my chair. Like, after Ashley goes to sleep, if it's not a night where I'm working on something up here in my office / recording area, I sit at I have a little desk downstairs, and I sit at it, and I'll play like World of Warcraft or something. I'll watch YouTube, you name it. I've fallen asleep in that chair multiple times. My wife's found me just sleeping in a chair because I'm just that exhausted. And it's been really hard getting on the same page with Andy in terms of finding basically an hour and a half to 2 hours to record this thing this week. So that's why it's a solo episode. And again, I cannot stress this enough. It's 100% my fault. It's on me. So again, if you're upset by this being a solo episode, I certainly apologize. I know the next question people are going to have is, going forward, is this going to be a regular thing? I hope not. I really hope not. But I can't make any promises. The changes that I've had to make in my life have been considerable since September. We all know what happened in September. I'm not going to bore you with the details. And if you if you want a brief summary, I was basically let go from my old job, which was a really good one. And I was trying to find a new job, and it was not easy because nobody's hiring in the fourth quarter of a year. And I took a really bad job that I hated. And it put me on a schedule that made recording this podcast nearly impossible. Now I have a job that I really love. Not going to go into where or what I'm doing, but it's something that's really great. It's been a blessing. But it's really pushed me. Like, personally, it's pushed me. And then, like, on the weekends, what am I doing? I'm, working on what I'm hoping is going to become a side business, which was me freelancing as a photographer / videographer. So it's been, my schedule's jam-packed, and I know Andy's is too, and that's really why this is happening. So I don't know what's going to happen going forward. I want to keep the podcast going, and I know a lot of people are going to question, is the podcast going to keep going? Is this like the beginning of the end? I don't know, but I hope not. So getting into our regular show format this week, what have I been playing? What have I been watching this week? And this will be kind of exemplary of, I don't know if that's the right word. I don't think it's the right word. It'll be a good example of how busy I've been. I probably played about 1 hour of World of Warcraft this week and nothing else. I haven't played Madden. I've completely given up on Madden Ultimate Team. I can't keep up anymore. Like, that's what I started to find out is, with my schedule getting more jam-packed, I can't grind solos, and I refuse to put money into the game. So it's kind of a done deal for me with Madden Ultimate Team, which kind of makes me wonder what I'm going to create content on YouTube, but it's another story for another day. And as far as watching this week, I watched The Butler for DCD Film Club. I've been watching a lot of American Dad, as I've been saying for the last couple weeks, on Hulu. And I generally watch that, and probably maybe get through half an episode before I start sleeping. Upstairs is where I watch it generally. And, a little bit of Adult Swim here and there, but I really just haven't had time to watch anything either. It's just crazy how things go, man. Before we get, well, you know what? We don't have listener questions, so I guess I can kind of expand a little bit on what I was talking about before. But content creation is so hard, man. I always tell people all the time, content creation is so hard. It's so easy to watch somebody on YouTube. And I'm kind of glad we're talking about this, because originally we were going to talk a lot more about content creation and how that works on this podcast, and we just never really got there. So I'll kind of give you guys some insight into like my journey and how it's been. So I started doing content creation over 5 years ago. It's kind of hard to believe that, but it was a little bit over 5 years ago. July will be 6 years. And, I had these just these aspirations of doing a really good channel that I was really proud of and putting out great content that I hope people would love. And here I am almost 6 years later, and I just, it's hard to believe that chapter of my life might be ending soon. I feel like this podcast is going to get a little bit too personal, so I'm going to apologize for that in advance, but I really don't have a lot to talk about, so I guess we'll talk about that, and hopefully you'll find some enjoyment out of it. But it is hard to believe, and hard to wrap my head around. This could be the beginning of the end. It might be time for me to grow up. YouTube, podcasting, unless you're making money doing it, unless it's a career, it's generally kind of a young person's game. And I wouldn't call myself a young person anymore. And it's maybe it is time to grow up. I don't know. But at the same time, as I told my wife the other day, we were talking about this very same subject about, I don't feel like I have any time to put into YouTube. Any time that I would put into YouTube goes into this. As I stated earlier, between watching a 2-hour movie, putting about 2 hours into editing, show notes, descriptions, making sure it goes out to the right platforms at the right time, and blah, 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 right? That's another 2 hours. And then let's just throw in another hour for editing. Putting 5 hours a week into this, maybe I could squeeze some content out on my channel with that 5 hours. But at this point, I've come to realize that it's completely unrealistic for me to think that I'm going to have an active YouTube channel and an active podcast that gets an episode out every single week. So like, I'm already finding myself at this point where I have to choose between one or the other. And that's heartbreaking a little bit. And that's kind of what I was telling my wife. The other thing is, it's like, it has to end eventually, right? But I guess what makes me sad about it is I still have a passion for it. I just don't have the time. And to let it die, and I'm not talking about deleting it, because I'll just leave it up there forever, even if I never upload another video, right? Like if tomorrow I find out I'll never be able to upload another video, I'm going to just leave it up. Because I just don't have it in me to delete it. Like it's this weird thing that has all these little pieces of me wrapped up in it. I feel like I'd be destroying a part of myself. I mean, there's videos of me and my wife on there. There's videos of me with friends that I've made over the years on there that I just would never want to get rid of completely. If tomorrow YouTube decided it was going to shut down, I'd probably download all my videos and throw them on a hard drive just so that I had them. To me, they're like kind of like home movies, you get attached to it. It's something you worked on. It's something you're passionate about. It's something that means something to you. You wouldn't have put it out otherwise. You're proud of it on some level. Nobody puts videos out on YouTube that they're not proud of. That's the other thing that I'm going to tell you. So, I don't know, man. I feel like I'm rambling, but this week was kind of a little bit sobering, to be fair. Like, it was a little bit sobering to realize that I was having a hard time even carving out the 3 hours it takes to watch The Butler and then to record this show. It was just really hard for me to do that. And it's just a big wake-up call. Something that I thought about all week, though. Like the dread of having to tell my co-host that I just can't do it tonight because I'm exhausted. I'm literally falling asleep as I'm sitting down watching TV, or that I can't do it tonight because unexpected things came up with family that I had to take care of. Those are things that I hate doing. I dread doing it. It makes me feel bad as a person, bad as a friend, bad as a co-host. But it's just reality, and it's like, I guess I have to cope with it in one way or another. So, what I'll tell you is this. If you're out there and you're someone who watches people's content on the regular, and I'm assuming if you're listening to me, you probably watch a lot of other people or listen to a lot of other podcasts or what have you. And I would tell you that appreciate your content creators. Don't be afraid to leave that comment, even if it's something like, hey man, I really like this video. That goes a long way in reaffirming someone's commitment to it. And it also makes that person feel like it was worth the effort. Just and an even more one step further, like if you're watching someone and you get hours, and I'm not saying pledge to our Patreon. This is not me showing for money. I don't care if tomorrow our Patreon went away. I deal with it. Like I'd figure out a way to pay for the show and all that. But my point is, if you have a content creator and you watch them for hours and you get all this free entertainment, throw a couple bucks their way, man. Like, they're putting in some serious effort to make that happen. I guess what I would say is don't take it for granted. And conversely, as a content creator, if you're able to make content, don't take it for granted. Appreciate every minute of it, because as someone who thinks that it might be coming to an end for them, it's a scary proposition. because I think everybody needs a creative outlet. I think that's really important as an adult to still have that one fun thing, that one hobby that you love. You know, that one thing that really gets you turned on, man. You know? And otherwise, what are you? You're a guy who punches in, punches out, goes home. Family's important, but we all need that me time. We all need that, I guess you could call it self-care, if you will. And yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'll find another hobby that's different. I don't know. So yeah, solo episode. So like I said, no listener questions. On the entertainment front, the only thing that I really wanted to talk about this week was the PlayStation 5 again. I'm seeing all these crazy rumors flying around, man. Like, I actually had somebody reach out to me and say they thought that the PlayStation 5 wasn't going to have a disc drive. So that rumor's getting kicked around again. Crazy world we live in. Like, and I'm kind of at the point now where I feel like it's time for both companies to rip the Band-Aid off. I know some people are like, hey, you know, they should wait till E3, or they should wait until right after E3 and do their own event so that it's like the only thing that people are talking about at that moment in time, so that maybe it doesn't get lost in the shuffle of everything else that's going on in E3. But I think right now, the rumors are not beneficial to both the PS5 and the Xbox Series X as future products. I think these rumors that are being kicked around, all the speculation surrounding pricing, even the speculation surrounding coronavirus possibly leading to production delays and or an increased price, I think it's really important for both companies to come out and try to maybe dispel some of those rumors if they are able to be dispelled legitimately, and then also reassure the public that this is a product that's not going to come out overpriced or underallocated, and it'll be something that will be available. The one thing that I thought both companies, Sony and Microsoft respectively, did with the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One was both were very available, even without a pre-order, day one. And I would really like to see that again. I think the days of consumers having to wait outside in lines and pre-order months in advance and not even know if that pre-order is going to actually equate to a day one console in their hands, I think those days should be over. But I don't know. I could be wrong. I will say the one thing that was really refreshing about the Xbox One and PS4 launches is I saw so many people, day one, no pre-orders, on a whim, going out and buying one of the new systems. And I think that would be a really positive thing for gaming if that happened this time around. Obviously, price will be a little bit of a factor. So I think if both of these consoles come out at $499, I think you will see a lot more on shelves. Whereas if they come out at $399, I think it's going to be almost flying off the shelves. Because to give you perspective, the PlayStation 4 Pro launched at $399 and it sold considerably well and continues to do so. But yeah, man, the rumors around the PlayStation 5 are getting a little crazy. Like, as soon as this person that I was talking to was talking about no disk drive, it wasn't a couple hours later before I heard somebody talking about, well, it's probably going to cost $600. And, it could be because of the coronavirus or increases in memory costs, which I think as someone who's into PCs, you definitely know that that's a thing. Memory's crazy expensive right now, and it's a little bit of a rabbit hole that you could go down and research, and I would tell you it's pretty fascinating. But right now, any kind of RAM memory pretty much comes from two sources, and these two sources know it, and they pretty much price fix, if that makes sense. And because they're an international entity, there's not really a whole lot that anybody here in the States can do to stop that from happening. We all know that price fixing, price gouging, things of that nature are kind of frowned upon in this country, and you can actually be, and I'm talking about the United States of America, by the way, but they are frowned upon, and there are penalties for doing that. So I just thought, man, we really, like, at some point, Sony's just got to come out and tell us what's up. And same with Microsoft. Like, give us a price, Microsoft. Let us know. You just dropped the price on the Xbox One X. It's $299.99 right now, which is a crazy good deal. So, anyway, also, did want to talk a little bit about DCD 68. So, I did have a couple people talk to me about the Sonic movie. And generally speaking, the reception that I've gotten from people that I know that aren't really movie buffs, but did see this Sonic movie, is that they really enjoyed it. So it was pretty refreshing after Andy took a... I mean, I love Andy, but man, he took a big old steamy dump on the Sonic movie. Kind of refreshing throughout the week as I talked to people. Over and over, I heard more and more that people are liking this thing. What is a little disappointing and a little concerning to me, as far as them maybe having a sequel or maybe not having a sequel, is apparently the box office numbers for Sonic this weekend are down over 70%, which is a little concerning. Not going to lie. Nevertheless, I really hope that it does well enough to where maybe, just maybe, we can get a sequel. If you stayed after the credits, you'll know why I want one, but I won't go any further than that. Make sure you stay through those credits, though. It's certainly worth it. So, yeah, Sonic, let's just hope it does well. I did see an early mock-up, by the way, of what the Steelbook is supposed to look like. It looks outstanding. If it's actually going to look like that, I'm really stoked. I'm hoping they have a Steelbook version. You guys know I'm really big on physical media, and that'll probably be our next topic, by the way. I've kind of reversed my thinking on this, so we'll get into it in a minute, but, if it's actually going to come out with a Steelbook, I'll probably buy the physical media version. So, speaking of that, that's something that we've talked about a lot on this show, physical versus digital media. And, this week I kind of came to a conclusion. And, it's kind of funny. We were just talking about the Sony PS5 not having a disc drive. And I was talking to somebody this week who asked me, like, are you into physical media or do you like digital media? Or are you just kind of like middle of the road? Like, you just go with whatever's cheaper. And this individual, they're 100% digital. And the reason why is they were telling me, at that point in their life, they were moving around quite a bit. And it was just a pain to have to pack all your games, all your movies, all your CDs, all that stuff, right? Just do digital and it's like all there. They're like, you're on the cutting edge of technology, right? But then as I was talking about how I am with media, I kind of realized that I'm slowly being pushed towards digital too. And I don't think that it's such a bad thing, because when I thought about the reasons why I'm getting pushed to digital, I just don't think that they're bad reasons. So first, let's start with games. Games, I'm still kind of a physical media person because I like the option to be able to sell them. But here's the thing. I can't remember the last time I sold a game. I can't remember the last time I traded a game in. I generally keep them at this point. Now, granted, I'm buying fewer games, but, I'm not trading them in like I used to. I'm certainly not selling them on eBay like I used to. So they're kind of stacking up. And the problem with that is, now comes the question, where do I store all of these games? And it is really nice to have a collection and, maybe put some shelves up like I have, and it all looks really nice. But then that shelf gets full and you go, well, what do I do? Just buy another shelf? I had an entire bookshelf pretty much full at one point. and I just go out and I buy a bigger one, But it's becoming more and more difficult to find places to store all of this. So it's kind of getting to the point where I go, well, shoot, like maybe digital is the right way to go. Music, we'll get this one out of the way real quick. Like, I don't even know where I would buy a CD. Like, I have no clue. I don't even know if there's a place here in Orlando where you can buy, maybe like Target or maybe like a Walmart might have a small section. But I can't imagine that there's many places where you could buy a physical CD. So at this point, everything's like digital. And I don't even buy albums anymore. I just kind of stream off of Apple Music. I pay $14.99 a month for me and my wife. And we pay that $14.99 a month gladly because we get, you get to stream everything basically. And then when it comes to movies, I find myself more and more moving towards digital because it's more affordable and I don't have to store it. And when you go on Vudu and there's just so much, or moviesanywhere.com, and there's so many things every day selling for $2.99, $3.99, sometimes 99 cents. I found Aqua Teen Hunger Force, the movie. I just looked it up in Vudu one night. I was like, I kind of want to watch that. And I never bought it on DVD. Could never find it on DVD. It was like a weird limited release. And now people that have it, they kind of, you pay a little bit of a premium for it, the used version. Search for it on Vudu and it's 99 cents. Probably still is that price. So, The Butler, good example there. I want to say I looked up physical copies and they were going somewhere between $13 to $20, depending on the places that I saw them available. I go on Vudu, I could outright own it for $4.99. I think we all know what choice I made. It's crazy how streaming services like Vudu, where you buy the license for the movie and you can stream it in perpetuity, they've just kind of taken over and they've changed the market completely when it comes to films. Sometimes the physical versions are cheaper. I'm not going to lie. Sometimes I'll find that weird thing where the physical version is the same. But, as we talk more and more over the years about game consoles coming out without disc drives, and as we see standalone Blu-ray players, specifically standalone 4K Blu-ray players, becoming fewer and far between. I think the last time I checked, there were 2 models on the market that were standalone Blu-ray 4K players, and they were very expensive. To the point where you might as well just buy an Xbox One X or a PS4, and I know there's going to be some video aficionado who's going to say the quality isn't the same, and you're right. They're not high-quality 4K Blu-ray players. Shoot, the PS4 doesn't even play 4K Blu-rays. It'll play 4K media, but it won't play 4K Blu-ray discs. It's interesting to me because, like, video quality aside, why would you spend more? And 2, once those game consoles don't have a drive anymore, what's the point of the Blu-ray disc? I've even gotten to the point now where I will not buy a physical movie. If it's more than $5, I will not buy it if it doesn't come with a digital code. It just won't. And don't even get me started on TV shows. TV shows, it's unbelievably more expensive to buy the physical media, and it almost never comes with a digital code. To give you perspective, the Batman, the animated series Blu-ray set, beautiful blocks, beautiful set, amazing show, one of the greatest animated shows of all time. You could maybe argue the greatest animated show of all time. I don't think you get a whole lot of resistance on that. I'm trying to think of something that you'd say is like on its face, maybe like The Simpsons or like South Park or something like that because of longevity. But I don't know, man. Batman the Animated Series has to be up there. Nevertheless, I am completely off base here. I wanted to buy it for my wife for Christmas because she really wanted it. And the box set had a big sticker on the front that said, digital code won't work after 12/31/2019. So it's $68, and I'm like, it's a pretty good price. It's on sale, but let me go on Vudu and see what it is. And it was on sale on Vudu as well for $38 for the whole thing. Again, I don't have to tell you which choice I made. It's kind of weird, man. I never thought I'd see myself there, but everything's it's so ever changing in life. I know it's a cliche to say it, but the only constant is change. Nothing ever stays the same. Technology continues to move forward. And my Vudu collection just keeps growing. Every week I usually buy $4.99 movie here, $4.99 movie there. And there's some great deals to be had. Like, for example, I got Alita Battle Angel in 4K for I think $7.99. Just an amazing deal. You'll never find it. Physical media, $4.99, 4K Blu-ray for $7.99. It's just not going to happen. Not even $9.99. So I kind of remember when I was working at Walmart, looking at 4K Blu-rays there, they're so darn expensive. You would think they'd be cheaper at Walmart, but they're not. They're actually more expensive more often than not than if you were to go somewhere like a Best Buy. Pricing system is completely out of whack. But when I say it just didn't sell, man. They just don't sell. And when you go to a Best Buy, it's kind of nuts right now. It's sad in a way, but it's also a little bit nuts. I went to my local Best Buy today, and I ended up picking up 2 physical movies. So there you go. I found The Office for $11, and I saw Vice. Really looking forward to watching that one. Christian Bale plays Dick Cheney. I can't wait to see that performance. I'm sure it's great. So went there, and I noticed the Blu-ray section is smaller. And smaller by about 4 feet. But when you multiply that by 4 rows, it's really 16 feet of space that they condense the Blu-ray section by. And then I went to their gaming section, and geez, the Xbox One section just keeps getting smaller and smaller and smaller, as does the PS4 section in terms of games. The Switch section is kind of different. It's a little bit bigger than the other ones. It's kind of weird how the Switch has become this last bastion of hope for physical media, I think, in gaming. I think that might be because their store is still it still feels like it's kind of in its infancy. But it's getting there, man. It's getting better. And then the DS section it looked pitiful. So as we go on, physical media just continues to die out over and over again. They did have a giant bargain bin of really old audio CDs. I hadn't seen that in a Best Buy in a while. I don't even know. They must have opened a box in the back and gone, oh my goodness, look at all these audio CDs. They throw them in a bin for I think $3.99 each. So it's a crazy world, man. We're all going digital, and it's happening faster than I ever thought it would. I thought internet speeds would be the thing that would kind of hold us back, because games kept getting bigger and bigger, and they continue to get bigger and bigger. And I thought, man, people's internet is just not gonna make it as fast as putting it all on a disc. But they're not even putting games on a disc anymore. You pop that disc in there, and it's basically a license on a disc, and it just downloads everything anyway. At least on the Xbox platform, and from my experience, it's been that way on the PlayStation platform for me personally. But I digress. So that's my rant on physical versus digital media. I'm slowly becoming a digital guy. I never thought it would happen before. And I'll miss some of it, man. I'll miss some of it. Sometimes I lament the loss of instruction manuals. Remember when I was a kid, maybe every once in a while, you go to a store and generally my mom would do it for us if we got like straight A's on our report card. And it was a good goal for us to have as kids. And then like we go to Toys R Us and we pick out a game. You take your little ticket. Oh my God, I'm probably might as well be speaking Greek to some of our younger listeners. But Toys R Us was weird. You go out there and they would have a box. You could look at the game, look at the front, look at the back. And then you'd pull a little ticket. You take it to a window at the front. Your parent would pay for it and they'd hand you the game. And then as soon as you get in the car, you like open up the game, pull out the instruction manual. You'd be reading that manual like front to back on the way home. Excited the entire time. Just can't wait to get home to play that game. You know, it was a big deal. I remember sometimes when I was bored, you know, at home, I'd read the instruction manual for a game just to see if there was something that maybe I didn't know was in there, you know. And now we're just going all digital. It's weird. It makes me feel old. This whole podcast has made me feel old. Talking about responsibilities and maybe can't be a content creator anymore. Maybe it's time to grow up, that kind of stuff. But yeah, so that's my rant on physical media. And I do have a sports topic this week before we get into DCD Film Club, and we'll kind of wrap up there. So, you know, we've talked a lot about the MLB on this show, especially over the last couple weeks. And I know Andy and I have disagreed quite a bit about tradition versus changing rules, tradition versus expanding the playoff format. I think we agreed a little bit more on the playoff format than we did the changing the rules, specifically surrounding the DH issue. But I think one thing that Andy and I would agree on is that this Astros cheating scandal has been terrible for the game of baseball. And this week, I really just had a lot of thoughts on the whole thing. And I feel like it's... Okay, so on its own, on its face, what the Astros did in 2017 is terrible for the game of baseball. Awful. If we take that one thing, and that one thing alone, it's one of the worst things to happen to the sport really since God, who made that report? Somebody in the government made a report, and it'll come to me later, but did the report on steroids and found that steroid usage in the MLB was long-standing and also very prevalent throughout the sport in terms of how many Major League Baseball players were using PEDs. And this report just gave the sport a stigma for over a decade, you know? And I think this is the worst thing to happen since then. It really casts a dark and unnecessary shadow over this game that I love, over this sport that I love, something that I've been watching since as long as I can remember. You know, I used to watch baseball before the Marlins were a thing. You know, I would watch I remember one of my favorite memories, watching the Toronto Blue Jays win the World Series against the Atlanta Braves. Joe Carter hits the walk-off home run in the bottom of the ninth. It's a great moment for sports, one of the greatest MLB moments ever. And I got to watch it as a kid. And it's something that I really remember vividly and fondly. I remember playing RBI Baseball 3 on the Sega Genesis and just loving that game. I remember collecting baseball cards and learning substantially more about the game of baseball, specifically around stats, than I knew beforehand. And I knew just about every player on every team because of it. You know, just baseball card collecting made me kind of a student of the game, if you will. And I played baseball with my friends. I played Little League, you know, you name it. So it's a big part of my life. And you just hate to see this sport that you love get sullied by cheating. Cheating that could have easily been prevented. But now, the rhetoric has shifted. The discussion has shifted. And now everybody's talking about how this scandal was handled. The commissioner didn't do enough, is what some people are saying. The commissioner still has a chance to do more. Some people are saying that too. And then there's a very small minority saying the commissioner overreached. He's done too much. I think that's kind of a weird thing that we're even having this discussion. Pete Rose has applied for reinstatement, saying, well, what I did was not as bad as what these Astros players did, and they didn't even so much as get a suspension. In a weird way, doesn't he have a point? I don't know. He kind of does. And then it makes people kind of question, well, what about these other scandals? Were those really, truly as bad? It just really opens a lot of doors that I didn't think it was going to open. And then now it's gotten to the point where LeBron James, who doesn't even play baseball, and I don't even know why he's sticking his nose in it to begin with, but, he's talking about this is bad for sports in general. And on that front, I'll agree with him. He also says that this is something that could really backfire on the MLB because it creates a lot of ill will between the players and the commissioner's office, because a lot of players who weren't on the Astros feel that the commissioner didn't do enough. I'd be liable to agree with him. I think that what was done was pretty bad and it deserved a very harsh punishment. But at the same time, I realize that any further punishment probably would have resulted in the Players Association going after the commissioner's office and creating even more drama. So I kind of get where the commissioner is currently coming from. My point in all of this, though, is now I'm seeing the discussion switching yet again. And people are making these Astros players out to be victims. I see ESPN talking about these guys are getting death threats. And their families are getting death threats. And that's fair. That's too far. I don't think there's really anything in life that justifies a death threat. Nothing in sports, at least. I think we can all agree on that. That's taking it way too far. Getting people's families involved is definitely taking it way too far. But now I'm seeing today they were confiscating signs that fans had brought in, kind of heckling the Astros about the whole sign stealing thing. Which, by the way, if that isn't sort of, I don't think irony is the right word, but how funny, coincidental should be the word I would use. It's kind of almost like a pun of sorts. The fans got their signs stolen by security at the baseball field because they didn't want them bringing them in. So comes full circle. But now it's like are we starting to feel sorry for these guys for what they did? I mean, like, we shouldn't be feeling sorry for them. They did something really bad. And they walked away with almost really no repercussions. Their coach got fired. Their ex-bench coach got fired from a job from a different organization. The GM for the Astros got fired as well. You can't fire the owner. You can't really fire the players either because those contracts are guaranteed. But I just hate that we're making these guys out to be victims now. It doesn't need to be that. I see people worried that they're going to get baseballs thrown at them, that they're going to get beaned. I'm sorry. We've seen guys get beaned for a bat flip, staring down a pitcher, staring down a home run. I mean, that kind of showboating has resulted in players getting beaned. I'm not justifying throwing at a guy, but I'm just going to say this. If you cheat and you get caught and you see a guy getting thrown at for flipping a bat, you better believe if you get caught cheating on this kind of a level, guys are going to throw at you. It's hard for me to feel sorry for you. You knew what you were doing. You knew those were going to be the repercussions. It's like you run up to a vicious dog and you slap it across the face. You know what's going to happen. It's going to come after you. You didn't have to do it. Didn't have to bang on that trash can, you know? So it's really concerning to me that we're turning them into victims, and I just don't like it. So there you go. I just hope baseball can recover. I'll be honest, I think that their ratings will take a hit, at least at first, and I think it is going to be a problem. I think a lot of people are going to throw out the Astros. I really do. It's far from over. We're going to be hearing about this forever. This is the new Balco scandal. This is worse than the Balco scandal. So, moving on to DCD Film Club. So, doing things a little different this week, as I'm sure you can tell at this point in the show. If you've made it to this point in the show, 1, thank you. 2, you already know it's a solo show. So here's what we're going to do. Andy has his review of The Butler. I'm going to put that on right now, uninterrupted. And then I'm going to come back and I'm going to give you my review of The Butler. So without further ado, here's my wonderful co-host, Andy, with his review of The Butler.
So The Butler, directed by Lee Daniels from 2013. It is a movie about a butler. It's the name of the movie. I couldn't think. It's about a butler who serves in the White House through 8 presidents. It's loosely based off a true story, as in the character in the movie isn't real, but there is someone that did that in real life. His name is Eugene something. I should probably Google that, but I'm lazy. I'm not going to. But in the movie, portrayed by Forrest Whitaker, a guy named Cecil Gaines, and his whole family is a fictional family. We're gonna get to spoiler territory. So like, his son Lewis, they use his son to portray different ideologies at the time. So his son decides to join the Black Panthers, which is like a more of an extremist, I guess, fight back against the hatred, versus where he is doing the approach of like earning their respect through showing respect and over time slowly breaking down the barriers between the races. And then his other son, I can't think of the other son's name. Crap. Anyways, his other son, I can't think of his name, but his youngest son, he joins Vietnam, and he's being more of a, he's showing that, kind of more with his dad, but, he's fighting for his country. He still loves his country despite all the hatred and the segregation within the country. So it kind of, shows you different ideologies through the time within the family, which is a cool, unique way to show the different ideas of the time. And the story's told through a Forrest Gump style, where it just goes through super quick, and it's kind of I guess that's how the guy happened, but it did Forrest Gump style. It shows the 50s and does the stereotypical 50s music, Ain't That a Kick in the Head. Every movie set in the 50s ever plays that song, or any movie that's ever in Las Vegas plays that song. Pretty stereotypical music. Other than that, I identify the other music to be that memorable or stereotypical. I guess it's kind of bland. It wasn't really that intriguing. Nothing new. Nothing really to hit home with, I guess. And then to speak with other things, the shots in this aren't really that memorable or great. I guess there's a shot of him walking through the doors, and then I thought that was kind of cool, and I thought that's from the poster or something, but it kind of is, kind of isn't. It's him it's him standing over, I don't remember the shot, but it's a shot of his back, and it's kind of the poster. And then they repeat the exact same shot later in the movie, and it's kind of like, oh, that's kind of weird and lazy to repeat a shot. And then I felt like the story, it went by a little quick. I wish we could spend more time in each time frame. I know it's a 132-minute long movie. It's quite a long movie, and it's spanning across like 30-something years. So there's not that much you can say, but like The Irishman, a perfectly long movie, takes a long span, and it makes you live in those eras. Skip 10 years ahead. But I guess in this movie, they're trying to portray that the 8 different presidents. I don't even know if it shows all the 8 presidents. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. I just don't quite remember. It's been a couple days since I watched the movie. But it felt like they went through fast, so I didn't have a chance to connect with each president. It does spend a lot of time with JFK, and it's one character I want to mention because it's the only character that actually uses like proper, I want to say proper dialect. The actor who plays the guy from the Sonic movie, generic white guy number 1. I can't think of his name. But the guy who plays JFK, he does like the JFK accent because like everybody knows JFK accent. And all the other presidents, I don't feel like attempts at making an accent, or at least I couldn't tell they were attempting to, / they weren't memorable. Which is a word I'm using a lot because it has been a couple days since I watched this movie. So I've kind of forgotten about it. It's kind of not a memorable movie to me for some reason. Which, with that being said, like the whole accent stuff, one thing that really, I'm going to be nitpicky and really didn't like about this movie is the fact that it doesn't use the dialect of the time. And it felt like the actors were talking how people talk in modern times. I guess a simpler version, like they weren't using slang or anything, but they're using modern dialect to try to portray a story that spans from 1927 to 2008, and they never changed the dialect of the time. They never have they never like speak like how they spoke in the 50s, or like anything. It was like, and this is probably even better for me to say, but like black people at the time were less educated, but in the movie they were talking like college educated people or enlightened people. I'm gonna get myself canceled by saying this, but historic accuracy, it kind of bugged me a little bit. Like former film club pick, The Lighthouse. One thing that I love about the movie is the dialect in the movie and how Willem Dafoe and Robert Pattinson portray those characters in the late 1800s, and they speak in their accents and they speak in the correct dialect, and it brings you into the movie, it captures you into the movie, and I don't know, it's just something like if it's not there, it's kind of weird, you know? And then, yeah, so The Butler, I find it wasn't boring, but it wasn't like a great time, and as you can tell from my review, it wasn't really that memorable. So yeah, I think The Butler, 5 out of 10, okay movie. So that is the review of The Butler. Our next pick is a Patreon pick from Dumb as Sphinx, and he's picking a movie from 2017, a movie. Fun fact that one time Sphinx, this is the first time ever Sphinx asked me to recommend him a movie. I think we did this in your chat on a Madden stream. He asked for a movie recommendation, and I gave him this movie, which is The Killing of a Sacred Deer from 2017, directed by Yorgos Lanthimos. That name may mean something to you. If it doesn't mean anything to you, please don't Google it, Alex. And I want to... At least don't Google it until after you watch the movie or anything about the movie. Until after you watch the movie, it's a really intriguing movie that I don't want to be spoiled, and you might get predetermined opinions about that movie if you Google it. But The Killing of a Sacred Deer is on Amazon Prime, Vudu for $2.99, YouTube for $3.99, Google Play for $3.99, and I also believe it's on Prime Video. Yeah, it's on Prime. So if you have Google Prime, you can watch the movie for free on Prime. That's the best way to watch it. If you don't have that, it's about $3 to rent all other places. So, yeah. Carry forth, Alex, with the rest of the show.
All right, so there we go. That's Andy's take on The Butler. I have not watched his video. I'm going to have a little fun with this. I'm going to say he gave it a 6 out of 10. Yeah, I'm going to go 6. So, The Butler. This film really surprised me, and in a good way. So, I originally, as you guys know, my wife picked this film. We were talking about DCD Film Club, and she was saying, I really like to pick something. And then she came up with this idea just kind of out of nowhere. She goes, well, we should pick something that's relevant to Black History Month. And this film is so relevant, and in a good way. So when she picked it, I saw that it was met with critical acclaim. I saw that it had an all-star cast, and just overall had all the makings of a great movie. I was still surprised. This was much better than I thought it would be, and my expectations were, as I said, very high to begin with. So just starting off, this movie was made in 2013, directed by Lee Daniels, and it stars Forrest Whitaker and Oprah Winfrey. I would say you'd probably put her as a co-star. So the rest of the cast is crazy good. Some of these, they play smaller roles than others, but they're still in there. I mean, you go down this list, it's tremendous. As I said, Oprah Winfrey, Forrest Whitaker, Mariah Carey, she's in there for a short while. John Cusack, in there for a short while. Jane Fonda, Cuba Gooding Jr., Terrence Howard, Lenny Kravitz, Alan Rickman is in this. Robin Williams is in this. It's a lot of real, and I'm probably missing some people. There's a lot of really great actors and actresses in this, and they all do a tremendous job playing a variety of historical roles. Robin Williams and Alan Rickman playing presidents. I didn't know how that was going to work. They nailed it. It was good. This to me feels, and I hate to make this comparison because it's certainly not as goofy or slapstick. Because, I mean, let's just be real. Forrest Gump is goofy and slapstick at times. And it certainly treats things much more seriously because this is based on someone's actual life. But, like, how can I put it? It shows how an everyday person plays a little bit of a role and also experiences American history, and then it shows how it impacts their life in a major way and in a realistic way. And that's what I really love about this film. It shows an African American man rising from one, absolute poverty and borderline forced servitude to a life where he's able to provide for himself, provide for his family, and give his two sons a better opportunity at life than he ever did have. And I think it's really a touching story, but it also talks, so it's like this great story about one person and what they did, right, in their life. And it's really touching emotionally. But at the same time, it also tells the story of our nation and how we've evolved over the course of about 40 years or so, and how things have changed so much in terms of race relations, how we view race as a country, and how we still have a ways to go. I think that's really important to take in here. We're still not where we need to be, but we've come a long way. And this man, it's based on the life of Eugene Allen. In this film, like, God, the character Cecil Gaines, like, he really sees people that are African American go from second class citizen feels like too nice of a term. Like they don't even get treated like second class citizens. You know, they get treated like absolute dirt in this country. And then eventually at the end of his life, he sees Barack Obama be elected as president. And I know people from that generation who did witness that, and I know how big of a deal that was to them and how the civil rights movement really changed their lives for the better, but it was a struggle to get there. And I think this film encapsulates all that in a very realistic and respectful way to the source material. So from a writing perspective, I think they've done well here. And the acting performances, like I said, from top to bottom were outstanding. So many great cast choices in this film. And I really like how this was shot. There were a lot of really good shots and cinematography in this film, especially a lot of the shots that they would do in the White House specifically were really good. I liked a lot of the wide angles that they did. Those were fun shots to see. Don't really remember much about the score. Probably not something that's really pressing. But nonetheless, you know, I do get some of the criticism surrounding the Butler as far as historical inaccuracies. I did notice a few myself, but I understand they had to take some creative liberties to try and make this entertaining and also make it where the plot made sense in just this movie. You know, the plot has to make sense, so maybe you change some things around a little bit. Maybe you gloss over some historical details a little bit. But all in all, I think it's a really good film. I think it has a great message, great acting, great cinematography, good sound design. Overall, really like it. I would recommend checking it out if you didn't. You know, if you may be on the fence, I would tell you, go out there, buy it. It's $4.99 on Hulu. Not Hulu, Vudu. It's $4.99 on Vudu, and it was worth every penny of that $5. And I'll probably end up watching it again. I gave this one an 8 out of 10, and it really earned some points for me for evoking emotion. I got a little teary-eyed at the end. And as you guys have heard me say over and over and over and over again on this show, is if you watch a film and it evokes some sort of emotion out of you, it's successful. It did its job. It made you feel something. Maybe it made you laugh. Maybe it made you cry. Maybe both. I laughed, I cried, I felt it. Some parts made me uncomfortable because racism makes me uncomfortable. It really does. You want to make jokes and all that, like I'm 100% about, like, you could joke about anything, but like true, absolute racism, discrimination, I just, it doesn't work for me. And it really does make me uncomfortable. And there were it really reminded me at points of 42, which is a film about Jackie Robinson and his struggle as he, you know, basically became the first integrated African American player in Major League Baseball. And there were a lot of very racist moments that felt very real in that film that made me pretty uncomfortable. And again, it's just another emotion that it gets out of you, and I think that makes it successful. So 8 out of 10, highly recommend it. Check it out. Like I said, right now it's on sale on Vudu for $4.99. It's worth every penny. I would have paid $20 for this. Like, it was that good. So yeah, that's DCD Film Club. And next week we are, and I hope I have this right, I hope this isn't a joke, but our Patreon pick for next week comes from Dumbest Sphinx, and he has selected Spices, Spycies. It is a spy movie. It's animated. It's from 2019, so we're going to be checking that out next week. I look forward to it. And Dumbest Sphinx, if Andy put this in the show notes as a joke, because sometimes he does, like, it's a running joke between me and him, like, we'll put, like, Inspector Gadget 2 in there as, like, I'll put that for Andy's pick next week, just as a joke, because I know he would never pick that, so I don't know. But if I got it wrong, I'm sorry, but I'll make a correction if I have to on Twitter. Anyway, that's going to do it for DCD 69. I hope you guys enjoyed the solo episode. I get to the end of this and I go, well, maybe I came across a little bit too dry or a little bit too ranty, but I did the best I could to try and talk for the full hour and not have lapses where I just didn't know what to say. So I figured I'd give you guys a little bit of an update on me, a little bit of an update on the podcast, and, you know, try to kind of maybe dispel some concerns that people might have that, like, I'm about to quit or whatever. I don't want that to be the discussion or, you know, people's thoughts. It's just it's been a challenging few weeks, but, you know, the thing that I will say, and I should have said this earlier and try to be a little bit more positive, is that any kind of growth in your life is going to be, one, uncomfortable, and it's probably going to be unexpected, and it's going to be a challenge. And that's part of what growing is. When you grow as a person, it's not going to be easy. Even when you grow as a kid in height, you get growing pains. I remember when I grew 4 or 5 inches in terms of my height over the course of a year, my shins were always hurting. Didn't know why. I went to see a doctor. He's like, it's because you're growing. Growth is never comfortable. It's part of the deal. It's part of the process. And as Sam Hinkie always used to say, gotta trust that process. Anyway, that's going to do it for DCD 69. As always, want to remind you guys that you can go to deadchannelduo.com, find us on every platform where we're available. And I do also want to remind you that there is a t-shirt link in the description. As always, you buy a t-shirt, we get $6, helps fund the show. And we have a Patreon. You go to patreon.com/DCD podcast. You can check out all the perks for being a Patreon backer. It's as little as $1 a month, and it does help us fund the podcast hosting for the show and our email and all that. So it's a great way to contribute if you can contribute. And I do want to thank our current Patreon backers, Dumbest Sphinx in the Egg tier. Bobby is in the Andy tier. And then we have Jared and Daniel in the Gold tier. Thank you guys for being continuing supporters of the podcast. We really appreciate it. So, and then if you can't support us monetarily at all, you can always leave us a review on iTunes. That's free. Subscribe to us on YouTube. That's free. Or tell a friend about the show. Say, hey, these DCD guys, they're pretty good. Check them out. That's all free, and it helps us out a lot. So that's going to do it for DCD 69. I feel like I should be asking Andy if he has anything else to say, but I can't do that. So we will see you next week for DCD 70. Thanks for watching or listening. Bye.